boy who was about 8 years old when I started to see him. And he had been in New York on 9/11, that fateful day. Not only that, his nursery had been in the North Tower, one of the ones that fell down of the World Trade Center. And on that day, his nanny had been taking him to nursery. They were late. They couldn't get there, so they'd had to go home, and they lived to the opposite side of the river, so they had to go back home. But the boy's mother was in New York City. She was working, and she was pregnant. She couldn't get home that day, so the child had stayed at home with his nanny, who didn't speak English, and they were sort of more or less aware of what was going on across the river, the towers, the fire. Although he was young, he was 4, I think, Mum couldn't get home, so he had this traumatic experience. And he came to my play session, suffering from anxiety, not able to sleep, very worried about everything, worried about the state of the world, and very, very upset in general, not specifically. And so one of the first things he did in the session was to use mega blocks, which are those very big building blocks. And he built this enormous tower. And then he got a boat which was full of people. He filled it with small people, and then he tipped them all out at the bottom of the tower. And he said, "Oh, this is an accident that happened." I said, "I was thinking about that because I think you were there on 9/11, weren't you?" He said, "Oh, well, I can't remember anything to do with that." I said, "Oh, okay," and just let it go. But then he played through that theme for several sessions and ended up, although he still denied remembering anything to do with it, building a huge memorial out of bricks, and he said this is a memorial to all the dead people. So he'd worked through something, even though he wasn't even really saying that's what it was. But by the time he'd worked it through, he was much less anxious and feeling better about the world.